GM everybody, welcome to Flywheel, your number one source for everything Frax, DeFi, and all that's in between. If you want to know what's going on in the world on chain, well, you come to the right place. This is DeFi Dave here with Capital K, and we are here to help you harness the power of the Flywheel. And this time around, we go to the wonderful world of options, and we have on the Premia folk. We have on some real OG Anons with Cozy, the legend himself, and DK to talk about everything that's cooking up at Premia, including some interesting composability and caveats. Kit, what are your thoughts on this episode?
I thought this episode was a nice blend for anybody, for everybody. We start in the beginning with the products, with the tech specs, and kind of going a bit deeper for the shape rotators. And then at the end, we hand it over to our decentralized finance David here with the word Selly, and kind of took us home with that. Nice.
Yeah, I would describe this as a very well-rounded interview. A little bit something for everyone. A little bit for the DeFi heads, a little bit people that love to dig into the math and the numbers and the finances, and also for like you said, the word sell, DAO politicians and politicking enthusiasts out there. So we have a little bit of everything. Yep.
We went from talking about deltas to DAOs. So
from deltas to DAOs, a conversation with Premia Finance. So a little bit of something for everyone. So we will not delay. But before we go into it, make sure you go ahead, give us a bell, hit that right now, subscribe, leave us a comment, let us know what you think. Give us a like. Every little bit helps. Make sure you follow us on all our social media at Flywheel DeFi on Twitter, TikTok, and Telegram. Make sure you give us a subscription on our newsletter, flywheeldefi.com. You don't want to miss out on any alpha, do you? So go ahead, flywheeldefi.com right now. You can follow yours truly on Twitter at DeFi Dave 22.
You can follow me at 0xcapital_K.
And let's get the flywheel spinning. Do you hold ETH but don't know what to do with it? Want to earn those juicy liquid staking derivative yields but don't know where to start? Well, Frax ETH is there for you. Frax ETH is Frax's native LSD solution, allowing you to earn boosted yields in multiple ways on your ETH. If you want to get started, go to app.frax.finance and turn your ETH into Frax ETH today. All right, everyone. Welcome back to Flywheel. I'm your host, DeFi Dave, here as always with Capital K. And this time around, we're going into the metaverse with our very own cat boys from Premia. We have on Cozy, the legend himself, the OG, and DK from Premia. They've been around for several years now, and they have some exciting products, including FXS FXS Integration that just went live recently. So Cozy, DK, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us, Dave.
Yeah. And I want to just get right into the FXS integration right away, because that's what caught my eye. Because this is the first FXS options on-chain ever. And this adds a whole new dimension for people that want to hedge or have FXS price exposure. So, let's get into a quick what is offered in this vault, what Premia is and what this FXS vault is.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. So what Premia is a DeFi options platform, right? We recently launched our V3 in towards the end of September. What that allowed us to do is we can bring in, if there's an oracle that exists, we can make a market for it, right? And so on Arbitrum, those assets, FXS and Frax both have oracles. And then what we can do on top of that as well is we can model an eyeball surface and then provide a type of product that essentially prices the options for you, given, change in price, change in the, implied volatility, change in, the time till expiration. There's quite a few parameters that go into it. And the way that we built it in a modular fashion is that we can expand, right? And because of all the necessary inputs that we needed existed, we were able to spin up a vault product, which if you deposit your Frax into the put or FXS into the call pool, what will happen is someone comes in and wants to buy an option for those, it will then price them for you, right? So you're collecting premiums, right? If you're writing in the correct direction. And then you're also, we have the STIP incentives, which are we added on top of that as well.
Yeah. Can we walk through a step-by-step process using FXS and Frax as an example, how Premia works?
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say that I am bullish on bullish on FXS. I got a bunch of fracs. The market is a pair, right? So it is going to be priced in that pair. What we do is we chain multiple oracles together, right? So we can either just do like, an FXX to USD, or we can do an FSX to USD and then a USD to fracs. And that's kind of, I think, how this implementation is working. And so one thing to kind of caveat with this is our vaults are not delta neutral. So what that means is you need to have a directional bias, right? So in this example that I'm going to showcase to you guys, I'm going to put fracs in the put vault because I think FXS is going to go up, and thus, if I'm writing puts, right, I then collect those premiums as income, and if the price continues if it doesn't move or it goes up, then those options will expire out of the money, and I get to collect that full amount of premium, right? So it's a stream of income if I'm holding some fracs. So in this example, I hold fracs, I deposit into the vault, and that's it, right? The everything else kind of happens for you. Now, if you're a trader, which is a different user group, right? So we have the liquidity providers. I just gave you an example for that. We have traders as well, and I come to the platform. I'm like, I am super bullish on FXS. I think it's going to double in the next month, right?
You're on the right pod. Let's go.
You can come to our platform, pull up that pair. It'll show you where the liquidity is, and by default, we have a certain like option specific metrics like delta, and we bring on chain every, I don't know, it's on Arbitrum, it's pretty quick, but we bring on chain through an eyeball surface, let's say every 15 minutes. And so I come onto the platform, I say, okay, let's go a strike of 15 or whatever. It will then quote that asset, how much that's going to cost me based on all those parameters that we kicked in that's tied back to the vault. So then in this example, if you had deposited FXX in the call vault, maybe you were bearish on FXX, then you are willing to write a bunch of call options in this example. So I'm a trader, I come in, I get a quote. Let's see if it doubles. If you're going for a double in a month, it's going to be pretty cheap, right? Because it depends on how volatile FXS is, but not too volatile because everything in the crypto market is usually a pretty high beta play. Like it's pretty correlated overall. And I can go into the eyeball surface if you want, but that was a lot. So tell me where I should slow down.
I'd follow it so far, but Kit, did you have any questions?
No, we're good. So DK and Cozy, just one housekeeping thing is on Flywheel, we are known to be the pod that goes really deep with all the founders and builders that have come on. Like, feel free to just let your freak flag fly, because that's what Flywheel is kind of known for, and our audience is more towards the expert / intermediate side of DeFi, so they're definitely much more experienced. So just ride.
I never know how deep I should get, so I try to tippy toe around.
We were on with I'm trying to think who it was. Maybe I think it was Hero, and they jumped right in talking about Ivol, and then afterwards he was like, I should have walked it back. We're doing this for the beginners, so we stepped it back a minute.
No, this is for the intermediate to advanced.
Yeah, no.
Exactly, we had on infinity pools and a bunch of other options protocols. So we've run this gambit before, and so it's that's why I love having options protocols on, because it's you get really deep into how the mechanics works, different implementations, different philosophies. That's a question I'll ask later in the pod. But you mentioned the eyeball implementation. Can you go into that a bit?
Yeah. So one thing that kind of makes Premia unique is for altcoin options, we are one of the only ones that will actually quote that asset for you, right? Our algorithm will, algorithm on the smart contract will essentially play as a broker role between a trader and a liquidity provider. And so the way that we can do that is that we need to bring in the implied volatility surface on chain. And that is one of the parameters that goes into a Black-Scholes pricing model, which then we use to provide quotes if you want to buy or sell on the front end. And so the way that we do that is obviously we have the mature assets, ETH and Bitcoin. They have a pretty mature market structure on Deribit. All right, so we use that as kind of like a starting point.
Got it.
We then kind of look at the specific asset that we're going to compare against. We run it through a Monte Carlo simulation in which that we kick out a derived implied volatility surface based on some of the different parameters and correlation between the mature markets.
What's a Monte Carlo simulation? Like Monte Carlo the casino?
Yeah, it's a mathematical model. There's a lot of different models to get implied volatility derivations. I'm not going to pretend like I know which one, the name off the top of my head. But our research team, they all came from a background of either being market makers on the buy side in traditional finance, mathematicians, but in terms of what thing that they all have together is they're all machine learning specialists, right? So we run it in a simulated environment for a while. Then once they're kind of comfortable with the way that the model kicks out, we will then bring that on chain, and then we write it on chain. It kind of depends on chain, but at least at every 30 minutes, right? And especially since the market has been pretty volatile lately, then we want to kind of push more regular updates if we can.
Right. So Dave, like the easy way to think about Monte Carlo simulation is just you set certain parameters and then you hit run, and the model will give you like a ton of scenarios that could happen. Right. So just think of it like that. And you just kind of jam it in there and see what kind of scenarios arise like the most often. And then you kind of derive like, okay, you kind of get like this bell curve situation.
It's not perfect.
It's not, but
it's a game of probability.
It works. It's been working for us. It's actually a little bit better fit model than what we had in V2. And then one thing that we're kind of looking at is, okay, well, right now you have to have a certain amount of liquidity for us to create one of these vaults for you, right? You have to have a certain amount of trading volume. You don't want to be in a situation in which, a 30K buy order will really move the price of an asset so much in which that your entire implied volatility surface is now wrecked. Right. So that's what we have. We have certain requirements in terms of what assets we can list, what assets like as a vault, which ones we can't. And like we can support anything with an Oracle, right? And you can do that. We actually, you can create a chained GMX FXS, option if you wanted. I don't know why you would want to, but you can, because you can chain those oracles together. But in terms of the vault products, we need to make sure that we're comfortable with the risk of our depositors and the model that it kicks out before we do that. And so we have like certain criterion on trading volume. And one thing that we're in the lab right now looking at is, can we model this out in more of a machine learning neural net scenario that is more responsive to zero liquidity or very minimal liquidity altcoins. So
yeah, let's get into that actually. Wait, Cozy, were you about to say something?
No, I will add one thing, like something kind of cool that is around this topic. DK's been talking a lot about, the use of chaining oracles and creating markets, that didn't exist before. And part of this, we brought in FXS as well as Frax. And I tweeted about this. One of the cool things about this is, even though the market that we kind of marketed and we have a vault for is Frax shares and Frax, supporting Frax and Frax shares on Premia allows you to now create a market for anything paired against either of those on either side. So you can do, if you're not someone that wants to use USDC and you'd like to create markets all with Frax, you can create a market paired against Frax for every asset that's supported on Premia, as well as you could, create it for any asset that meets the other specifications. Just because it's not supported on Premia doesn't mean you can't use our Oracle adapters to create markets for other assets.
Got it.
Dave, before we dive in, I wanted to ask a question about like who's the counterparty and like how does the liquidity side of the equation works? Like you mentioned the vault, and then obviously LPs are in there, and then the traders come in. Are they just smashing against the LPs, or how does that whole flow of orders look like?
Yeah, so we have 3 inventory sources right now. We have the vault, which is the primary inventory source today. I don't anticipate that it will be the underwriter of the first underwriter on the list in 3-6 months time. But right now, that's the easy solution. It's easy from a liquidity provider. You just you deposit in there, and Premia's algorithm will kind of sell those options for you when there's a buyer on the other side. And again, but like I said, in a random walk scenario, maybe not the best to deposit into those. You typically want to have a directional bias, right? Like you want to be selling puts when you think the tokens are going to go up, and you want to be selling calls when you think the tokens are going to be going down, right? And another way that you can, because of our platform, we pay for premiums in the native token, and you deposit in the native token. Another one thing that's obviously not financial advice, but another strategy that we do see is that if you're bullish on ETH and you also want to get some of the yields that come with ETH, then you can use a lending platform, borrow against your ETH and stablecoin, and then deposit that into the put. And that's how you still have your directional long play on the spot asset, and then you also are writing puts. So yeah, back to your inventory sources. So we have the vault, which is the main underwriter right now. We also have functionality for an order book, which we actually have the order book on chain. It lives on Nova. We just use Nova as a decentralized database. Really, it's more for if anyone else wants to index the orders, if someone wants to double check to make sure they're not being censored or front ran, then you can check it on Nova. We just re-index it and we bring it to the front end. And then we have different like programmatic elements. We have API endpoints, SDK. That if you are a programmatic trader, you can then plug into those, and we'll take care of the Nova integration for you. And you can you fund an account, and then you can kind of trade through it. So we have the order book, which I can go into more detail, but it's straight, limit orders. You can cancel and correct, as many times as you want. I think our API is like, 10,000 cancel and corrects a day before, we ask you to share in the gas cost, which is like, I think we have it like $20 right now is the top tier, $20 a month. So it's like, it's not a lot in cost. And then we have our range orders, which is the AMM part of our exchange. And so it's a concentrated liquidity range orders, a similar concept as a Uniswap concentrated liquidity, when we have this added dimension of time, right? Because there's always that expiration side of things.
Right.
And so it's in simple terms, you can deposit within, similar to how a Uniswap one-sided deposit would work, is probably the best way I can explain it. So on Uniswap, you have, let's say, ETH and USDC. And when you deposit an LP, you'll put in like 50% of each, or you'll put in 100% ETH or 100% USDC based on if you like essentially want a TWAP. On our platform, it's like that, but it's with collateral and short options. So short options just means like you're selling the option. And someone else is buying the option, then they're going to be long options. So in our example, if I were to deposit ETH as collateral, I'm in a long pool. As someone comes and buys, my collateral will then get utilized, and then I will be selling long options, and then I become short options as my collateral gets locked up until expiration. And then if someone comes in and wants to sell, I'm buying, because it is similar to the Uniswap model where your ratio is changing. Now you're less collateral and you're more short options, but then someone comes in and wants to buy those. Then you could end up back at 100% collateral, and you just pocketed all the trading fees within, as you progress through that range. So it's a little bit more complex than a Uniswap model, but I like to use Uniswap because it's what everyone understands, right? And so that's our range orders. That's our AMM. It's hit or miss. I would say that similar to the problems that you have with a traditional Uniswap V3 pool, you have the same things in an options pool of like, it's, subject to being front ran by arbitrage. There's some downsides. If you're not actively managing it, then, it still works, and it still will capture spreads for you. And especially if you like bought when things were like relatively cheap, and now you're looking to like TWAP out of a position, it's a great use case for that. However, you're going to get front run if the market moves a lot on you. Now you're selling options that are not quite priced correctly, right? So we have some things that are coming out in the next week or so that will allow you to actively manage that yourself. Like we give a whole suite of tools that you can use changing prices to then recalibrate your range orders and constantly deposit and withdraw from them. But as it stands right now, those are the 3 inventory sources. And then the biggest thing that we've been working on since we went live is market makers, right? So I think the biggest use case between Premia and let's say a centralized exchange like Deribit is there's a lot of spread to be captured. There's a DeFi premium that exists. How can we make it work with different market makers that are willing to capture that spread and collect that premium between, essentially extending the Premia order book to a centralized exchange, right? And this the only way you can really do that at scale is if you hedge the other side, right? Others are going to take a directional bet as a market maker. So, knock on wood, we got 1 week till then, and then we'll be we got our first market maker that will be providing that service, and then all things kind of come in line. So, I mean, it's a good time to bring on Frax.
Hell yeah!
Sure.
There's a lot of things are converging this week.
Yeah, I have a question when it comes to. Sorry.
Before you get there, let me summarize what DK just said because it was quite meaty. Just so for the listeners who kind of got lost in the sauce a bit, there is that there are effectively 3 sources for inventory. The first one being the vaults, which effectively would write options towards any strike price at anything, and the trader can just slam into it. Then you have this super sick design of like an order book, much more standard. You can kind of basically cherry pick which specific strike you kind of want to provide liquidity for and pick out of. And then last bit is like this concentrated AMM, where you could really focus in on your liquidity on certain strike prices or even expirations that you so desire. So those are the 3 inventory sources. And obviously liquidity is a huge element of writing options because that's just literally the lifeblood of it. And you guys are working with a market maker to really deliver that to the users. And that's coming literally within the month. Is that a accurate summary?
No, knock on wood, end of week. But yeah, it will be here. It'll be here in December for sure.
Just in time for Christmas.
Correction. With the vaults, they will no longer underwrite anything. Our V2 vaults were full range, and they would pretty much underwrite anything that anyone wanted to purchase up to 90 days out. Our current vaults will only underwrite, I believe, 20 delta and up to 35 days. So there is some rails involved in that to try to minimize loss. One thing that I know we're probably going to do more, but one of our like kind of goals is to cater to LPs, right? To minimize the loss, because in a lot of DeFi Vault and a lot of options platforms that existed in the past, it was on the short end for the LPs. LPs were the ones that were getting wrecked. So there was a lot of kind of thought that went into like liquidity mining and emission design for like vaults and like the architecture for the vaults and things like that to try to not make them as risky, quote unquote, as some of them that existed in the past, including our own.
Let's get into that, like what's going on with the LP vaults and making life easier, making it safer and less risky to LP. So what was it like before, and what is it going to be now for LPs on Premia?
Previously, the way that our V2 vaults worked, I kind of summarized it just a moment ago, but you could, as an LP, when you deposited in to any of the vaults, they were the same, where you either deposited ETH into the ETH call vault to essentially be short, or Stablecoins into the put vault to essentially be on the other side. And the difference was that those would underwrite anything. So any strike that people wanted for the asset up to 90 days out.
There's an automated market taker. It took anything.
Yeah, would take anything
Maker,
but
yeah.
maker, taker.
Maker.
And they were American style, so like people could exercise anytime before expiration. It was an AMM, so people could sell their positions back. Whereas now the vaults have some safety rails to them, you could say. They're buying and selling options within the vault. They'll only underwrite up to 35 days out. They underwrite with a standard delta of 20, I believe. So there are, some safeguards in place to try to limit some of the losses that could have been incurred in the previous model of the vaults. And one of the new vaults we're introducing is like a buy-sell vault. That's with our Solana vault, where users can, both buy and sell back to the vault rather than needing to just sell their option position onto the open market. That one is it limits both gain and loss a little bit more, but if it works well, then there may be something that we implement into the other vaults. More so if that's something the community wants. Like if they like the way that the Solana vault is operating right now, then maybe we upgrade the other ones.
Okay.
Yeah, they
Cozy,
have different use cases. And we're still kind of split internally on what we have different opinions for sure. On which one is the best for different market conditions. So we're playing around with the new implementation on the Solana vault. It performs a lot better if the utilization of the vault is high. So like if there's not a lot of liquidity, but people are continuously buying, because it wants to essentially close out that position and then write another option, right? And so it will take it will take a less of a gain. They'll kind of take a capped gain in a sort to be able to write more volume, right? To have higher turnover. So we're excited about it. We'll see how it works.
Got it.
We got to give it some time. But in our simulations, it looks really well. And especially, like I said, high utilization vaults, it performs really well. It also performs really well if your directional bias is correct, right? Because then people are like, okay, well, I'm just going to exit this position because the price keeps on going up and I think it's going to go down. So I'll eat my loss today, and then that vault can underwrite another option.
Yeah, and Cozy, you mentioned that it's only going to be selling at basically 0.2 delta. So these are just out of the money options.
Yep.
I think
is that right?
20 to 60, I think, is the range. It depends. It depends on the asset, but I don't think it's. We have to double check the range, but like right now, because the markets have been like ripping, and the IV service is kind of all over the place. Volatility is super high. Our vaults are going to be very defensive in what they're going to be writing, right? And so, if you come to a platform today, I haven't checked in since this morning, but because the market's ripping higher, my assumption is that the amount of strikes that we're providing right now that the vault will underwrite is pretty limited.
Gotcha.
So it's a blessing and a curse, I guess, when it comes to liquidity. We're super defensive on the LP side, and because of that, then sometimes there's not so much liquidity if you're trying to come in and buy an option when volatility is high.
If the inventory is coming from the vault.
If the inventory is coming, correct. Right.
And one thing, DK, that we didn't touch on, although we haven't had much use yet, is the RFQ network. You talked about limit orders, but maybe we could go into just like that existing. I think not very many people offer kind of a pseudo like request for quote network, and I don't know. Maybe something we gotta do. Maybe.
Yeah, I can touch on it. So like I said, we have a lot of the off-chain integration. However, all the settlement is going to happen on-chain, right? And so we have this ability of the order book where you can do a lot of cancels and corrects. I would say that the benefits and drawbacks of the order book versus the concentrated liquidity is that TWAP aspect, right? So if you put in a limit order for 100 ETH at a certain fill, it's all gonna get filled at that price or not, right? And it's not a fill or kill, but it can get partially filled. But you're not going to, if people continuously continue to buy these options, it's not going to adjust the price to go up if there's like more buyers than sellers in this circumstance, right? So like you're not going to be able to benefit from, I could actually be selling these options for more than what I'm currently have on the order book for. So that's one of the benefits and the drawbacks. But you can cancel and correct a lot at like almost no cost, pretty much free. So if you have more of a programmatic connection or infrastructure, then that's probably going to be the best for you, right? Because if you can cancel and correct like every minute or every few minutes, then that's going to be the best model, and you're just constantly consuming updates. You're constantly getting pricing from Deribit, and so like getting that online has been what's been taking us a while. The market conditions also in September were a little bit different, and to give you guys a little bit insight into the industry from the market makers' perspective of on-chain options market makers, there's not a lot. And the ones that actually have the infrastructure to support it, right? Integration to their risk systems is pretty time consuming, and right, so they have they got a long list of integrations that they have, so it's just a difficult thing. So it's taken us a while, right? Since end of September, but we're almost there.
Right.
Which I think unlocks a lot, right? Because we moved to Europeans, people still don't want to hold till expiration, but you can't exercise early on our platform. So we need to have that exit liquidity for you in an economic, in price correctly, right? Mark to market. Otherwise, no one's going to, use our platform. So that's like the biggest growing pain that we've had while we're there.
Got it. And wait, so you switch from American to European, and effectively that's the difference is just when you can exercise, right? One is only at
Correct.
expiration and the other is kind of any time in between. But you're saying people still want to be able to close the positions. And that's why,
If I buy an option today and it's a 2,300, let's say yesterday I bought one for 2,300 ETH call. Yep. And I bought it for like $5. And ETH rips and it still doesn't expire until Friday. But now it's getting priced at like, let's say $15 because we're like within $10 of 2,300. And I don't want to wait until Friday. I'll take my $10 profit and then I can roll it into whatever.
Yep.
So,
got it. And I feel like the Premia platform delivers such flexibility and options for the users. No pun intended. But where are you seeing the highest user activity? Like what is this, what is the behavior around that?
Definitely go ahead. I was going to say definitely on the vault side, like people are we know that we're all like DeFi users ourselves. Like we're all heavily directionally biased and apes. So like, if we see numbers going up, like we're all bullish. And as soon as like, the first stream of red candles come, it's like, oh, it's so over. But most people are looking for simple solutions. We see a lot of activity in the vaults. We're trying to get more people comfortable with using options. I think one of the big issues that not just Premia, but like the whole options sector is kind of experiencing is that there's this stigma that options are too difficult. And they're really not, it's more, I think, just like an education issue on our end, like not on the user's end. We should be providing more helpful content. We should be providing more guides. We should be making our platforms easier to use and doing more handholding because options are super useful. They're very capital efficient most of the time, especially in like current environment if you're not shorting. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like kind of getting these tools into people's hands and making it easy to use. I've been tweeting and memeing a lot about like making market making easy over the last couple of weeks. We have a range order bot that the team's been working on that'll be released publicly soon. But I've been telling people if they're interested in using it, I'm happy to like get them set up and show them how to use it because it's really easy and it kind of makes the experience more fun when you're in there tinkering and you have a new tool, a new toy to play with.
So what is this range order bot? That because I saw you tweet about that today. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So it's like, do you set parameters and it adjusts the range on those parameters? Does it do it like automated by itself? Like,
yep.
How does it work?
Right now it's run locally, but you set all the parameters, your delta range that you want, the strikes that you want to underwrite, the assets that you're going to underwrite, calls or puts, your think like gamma range or minimum data expiration that you want to underwrite, and a few other parameters. And yeah, you set those, you link a wallet that you'd like the bot to run from, and then it will run, the strategy essentially that you've set for it automatically, checking Oracle prices, checking spot prices, and we'll deploy new pools with capital, remove your capital from those pools within the defined hours or time range you've set for it. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I've had people purchase options that it's underwritten. I've won pennies and lost some playing around with it. But I think a lot of us who come into crypto think of it like a game or are playing with things like they're games. So the more kind of tools and toys and gamification that you can provide, I think adds new elements of fun for the different types of traders. And this is just, one of those tools in the tool belt that people can kind of have fun with.
Yeah, it seems like when constructing Premia, the options protocol, you kind of had to construct the picks and shovels around it, whether it's like the range order bot, or I've even considered like the Premia Academy as like a pick and shovel of like getting people familiar with not just Premia, but with options. And it's very impressive what you guys built over there, because I was on it earlier today. It's very thorough, and it doesn't just talk about Premia, but it teaches you about options and gives you context about options, what they are, why people use options, how they work, and then it gets into the Premia products. So excellent job there, and I want to like go into that a bit more. So like, how did Premia Academy come about, and what has been the reaction you've gotten to it? What feedback have you gotten to it? What do people like about it? Yeah, go ahead.
People, I think, generally love the Academy. It's usually like the first thing people talk to us about is how much they love the Academy. It came about from just the lack of there being educational content about options, and DK and some of the people on the content side kind of spearheaded that and got things up and going. And the idea was to just create kind of a public good, and not, like you said, like it's not Premia specific. None of it is actually about Premia at all, except for some of our like Quest courses, like when we did like a Chainlink or a Galaxy like Quest. But everything else is platform agnostic. And like, we'd love if you came to our Academy and learned about options and then traded on Premia. But we didn't want it to be, forcing you to use Premia just because we're providing this information. And yeah, it has like a glossary to kind of demystify the language that's used around options. You start talking about IVOL and gamma and theta, and people are like, yeah, I'm not fucking trading that. So it kind of demystifies it, because they're all concepts that people think about, whether they're thinking about it or not. They're thinking about time decay, and they're thinking about, the expected price and the And a lot of times they're considering historical volatility without thinking that that's what they're actually thinking about, when they're looking at past price performance or volume. Like all of these things are, I think, concepts that like every trader is thinking about. They just haven't put a term to it, or they don't know that, they're actually applying this to what they're doing. So we have a glossary that kind of demystifies that, and then really easy, basic, like intro to options courses that people can go through at their leisure, take little short tests and quizzes to test their knowledge. And then more advanced ones. We partner with Marty. Some of you guys have seen him.
Marty
on Twitter.
He's great. I love his Twitter.
Yeah. He's really great. He's put together some master classes for us, going into more advanced strategies and how he trades options. And we just hope to continue to build on that. Like we'll continue to build out that Academy. We'll probably launch some Premia specific sections to help handhold a little bit more on our own platform. But generally, yeah, people have loved the offering all around, like the aesthetic, the use of it, and the information,
the waifus.
Yeah, you got to have the wife. If I'm involved, there's going to be some waifus.
Yeah, the waifus. Yeah, like a little extra motivation, for the courses. You're successful, you get a waifu at the end.
I actually love. We should do that, DK. Like some maybe for partners or something. I love that. I think Llama Nodes does that. If you're like a partner of Llama Nodes, that you get a protocol waifu.
They send you a body pillow.
I was surprised how quickly I had mentioned to the currents guys, I was like, no waifus. I'm disappointed. And like literally 2 minutes later, they tagged me on Twitter like waifu version for vxCozy. So I don't know. The waifu effect, it's powerful, man.
Yeah, in the Flywheel Frax ecosystem, we have Frax Bowl, but like maybe we should get some like Fraxo waifus, Frax waifus going.
You
like
need
in
one
all
to
black.
accompany the bowl. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, could you imagine some like goth girl Frax waifus?
Yo,
Holy shit.
Game over.
Game over. Incredible.
World domination with this one simple trick.
One weird trick. Goth girl waifus.
Yeah.
So,
Actually,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Cozy.
No, go ahead, Cap.
No, so I was just thinking like maybe I'm the one that's just so jaded about this space because like I've used hedge, I've used Lyra, and I just every time I use these protocols, I'm just thinking to myself like, because I used to trade equities and commodities options on TD Ameritrade via the Thinkorswim platform, and like it was awesome, right? I loved it. The liquidity was amazing, like everything just fits, right? But then when I try to do it kind of on these protocols, it feels clunky and it just doesn't have a really great UX. And on top of that, I'm just like, who's going to suffer through this for like, you can't even size in, right? Like the profit opportunity is not even that large to match the suffering here. So like, I wanted to hear your guys' vision about this space more so than, the current state. Like, how do you see it kind of evolving, and what does that look like? What does that future look like?
Well, you said it right there. The current state is there's a huge lack of liquidity in the options markets for DeFi. I think one of the issues that matching pricing, right? Like you get better pricing on traditional venues. You can fill your orders on the traditional venues, but it's kind of a chicken and egg problem, right? Like you need the liquidity in the DeFi protocols to then match the pricing and be able to fill the sizes and everything. So like, I see a world where, I'm a DeFi maxi. Like I see a world where there's more volume on chain than there is on the centralized markets because there's no, you're not susceptible to the third party risk of having a custodian. I wish more people, felt that way. And that was the world we lived in now. But it's not. So I think in the process, like while we're getting to that world, we need to, create composable systems so that you can do things like hedge properly. We need to match pricing, because we can't do it on maybe the liquidity side. We do it on the fee side, so that they're not feeling like when super price sensitive or fee sensitive on a market maker side that you're coming and like, you're getting, you're not only getting hosed because there's a lack of liquidity and you're taking the third party like smart contract risk, but you're also getting hosed because you're paying more fees. So like, just doesn't make sense. So yeah, I don't know. The world I see is that eventually everything moves on chain. You see OKX like right now they're moving on chain. Right. Like it's if they're the leader, if they're the one to take the first step, like I love to see it. But I hope that's like the direction everything goes. And if they do, if everything like slowly starts moving to where even there's bridges to all these centralized exchanges and their on-chain version of them, I think that opens the floodgates for liquidity into the rest of the market.
So this is different than like Binance Smart Chain and Base, where like, it's like, the branded L2, but I think I saw this today too, and I thought it was just that. Are you saying that like OKX is like moving its whole platform on chain on an L2?
I'm saying I hope I see a world where we do where that is what happens, right? Where like everyone wants to eliminate custodian risk. So everything moves to a world where we're all on chain. Okay. Now, whether that's the reality that like, if that's just my utopia, then so be it. But
no, I've heard multiple people talk about that. Like one of the first interviews we did on Flywheel with Sam, the founder of Frax, is like his goal for Frax was to become like the decentralized on-chain Binance. And then I remember a few years ago, it was in the summer. It was in like the summer of 2022, like June of 2022. CZ did an interview on Bankless, and he talked about like he saw in 5 years that bank like BNB chain would be bigger than Binance and centralized exchange. So I think a lot of people align with what you're saying. Like eventually, like the world of decentralized finance will be much bigger than the world of centralized exchanges, and hopefully TradFi at that rate.
In my world, there's no more Deribit. There's Premia, and everyone's using Premia to price their options and their structured products.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a few things that, like industry wide we gotta work closer together with. I think.
But what do you think those issues are?
Standardization.
So, standardization's the biggest one, right? And we're already in talks with some other like. You can call them competitors, we call them partners, but it's people that are building in the same space as us. Is that a shared settlement layer? A shared settlement layer. Yeah, that's what we call ourselves actually, the Vulcan ball. But yeah, there's things that were very impactful to the industry. So for a regular token, the ERC20 standard, right? Like just having that and the composability that comes with an ERC20 standard. Was key to the success, right? And so we don't have that for options, right? So at least a shared settlement layer of you could buy on risk and sell on Premia's order book, and then buy from DopeX and sell on Lyra. That is probably we need to get there, and it's going to take us a little while to get there. I don't see it happening probably within the next 18 months, but like starting those discussions already of like what does a shared settlement layer look like, at least for a fully collateralized option. All right, so like that's one thing I think that's going to bring us a long way when we eventually get there, because then it's not a winner take all. There's like different areas that we can differentiate as co-builders in this space. That's the biggest one, I would say. And then maybe we get to a shared margin, maybe we don't. On-chain portfolio margin is like the holy grail. It also can sometimes be like a unicorn. Does it exist, especially cross protocol? Maybe. I don't know.
Can we get into what is on-chain portfolio margin?
So we can start with like isolated margin. So isolated margin is going to be specific to one position.
Okay.
So whereas I don't need to put up 100%. So right now, if you come on the Premia's protocol and you sell an option, those are fully collateralized options. So if you're going to sell one ETH call, you need to lock up one ETH until expiration, right? So that's fully collateralized. If we introduce like partial margin or isolated margin, let's say you come in and you only have 0.3 ETH and you borrow the other 0.7 ETH and you pay a borrow rate for that 0.7 ETH, right? So then you can still write one for 0.3 ETH initial collateral, you can sell 1 ETH of a call option. So that's the first step. A lot of we have the spec ready, we have like the smart contracts half deployed. Half complete, but the Arbitrum STIP kind of threw a wrench in things. You have to use it or lose it. So we can get into that maybe later, but isolated margin is like the next step for us. And you already see some of the other people in the space have isolated margin. And then portfolio margin is the next step where all the positions have a mark-to-market value and they can offset the risk that you have. So I think a good example of this is a combination of a perp product and an options product. So in a perp product, you get liquidated on wicks, right? Like you get a sharp wick, you're going to get liquidated, especially if you're like really close to what your margin maintenance is supposed to be. However, if you had been holding, let's say like a put option, as the option goes down in price, as the spot asset goes down in price, your put option increases in value at the same rate, in which that you won't get liquidated on a wick, right? So like having that cross protocol margin is like either you have to build up the entire stack yourself, right? And that's what you kind of see with like Avo is just build out the perps, build out the options, but then you're introducing like a lot of risk, but also you're like, if there are protocols that are experts in this product and they already have PMF and they already have the community, then can we build something together, right? In which introduces a lot of security concerns, but also is probably like the best path forward. Because us at Premia, we don't really want to get into the perps market, right? But if we need a 1 Delta product to be able to provide portfolio margin to our users, right? And there's different ways that you can do it, but perp is a great product, right? Like it is very capital efficient. People love it in the crypto space, and so like it's just finding the right partner for that, and then building out the dual accounting with them, and then creating like a pilot program and getting that over. Like it's discussions that we've been having. It's not something that moves quick, but it is the ultimate goal, right? Is getting to shared portfolio margin.
I think
TLDR?
you are. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Cozy.
Go ahead.
TLDR.
Go ahead. No, it's TLDR. The TLDR, isolated margin, single position margin, like just one option position, being able to take margin up. Portfolio margin, being able to take out margin across your whole portfolio of option positions. Shared portfolio margin, doing it across protocol. So those are like the three you could say that we're working on.
I think first of all, that is the correct, in my opinion, the correct go-to-market strategy for an options protocol is to work with a perps protocol, because that instrument has found PMF. Like there's no denying that perps have found PMF. Right? If options can come in and elevate that further, then I could see adoption for options, because people are, well shit.
Adoption for options.
I love these. I love smashing, and let's be honest. Everybody knows what isolated and cross margins are when they look at a perps protocol. But the moment you take that out of context, everyone's like, wait, what does that mean? But then, what you guys are building is really the most important layer is cross portfolio, but also cross protocol. So it's like a double cross margin, because right now I have assets on, say, NANs, that I also have assets over on OKX, because some things are listed on both or others. But then they can't talk to each other, so then now if one position is down bad but the other is up great, like I have to now liquidate and move stuff over to kind of top off and do vice versa. So management is a pain, but that's what introducing this options hedging layer almost, or this auxiliary layer, I think is like the perfect way to get people to learn about options.
I think that's one of the nice things about DeFi in general. Like you just said, like it'd be really hard to get, let's say, like Binance and I don't know. Let's just say FT. We'll go in the past. It would have been really hard, to have like Binance and FTX, right? To want to like share across, because they're your direct competitors in like every way. Whereas in DeFi, like we're not competing with the perp protocols, So us integrating with the perp protocol is looked at in a much different light from the team when you're approaching them. Like, the FTX BD team approaching Binance BD team about something like that. I don't know. Maybe it would have went well back in the day, but as they started gaining market share, like there's no way they're going to want to partner with them and share like revenue or share fees when they're trying to put them under.
Yeah, DeFi is just positive sum by nature, and the opportunity to be more positive sum by nature and work with other protocols because of all the composability and all these fun money Legos that we can create together.
Totally.
Yeah. Cozy, Kit, did you have any more questions about options? No? Cozy, I'm curious, because you've been in the space for a while. You've seen a lot of shit go down. Why did you join Premia? What did you see at Premia? And you've been there for a while. I believe you've been there since the beginning. And you've stuck around. So like, let's hear your Premia story.
Almost. Yeah. I mean, you could say since day one, not since the inception of the idea, but I met DK, Froggy, Lumio, and some of the other guys early during like the NFT season of the last bull run. And we were all interested in building around like NFTs. We were volunteering on a project together and just kind of experimenting and having fun. And, DK has a traditional finance background. Lumio is like one of the best smart contract engineers I know. We call him Lord Emperor. And, they were like, hey, there's no options protocol for altcoins that exist. Like, why aren't we building this? And the only thing that existed at the time, I think, was Hedgic. And, I always kind of give them flowers because, like, even though, like, we wanted to build Premia in a way to protect LPs. So, like, the things that were happening to LPs on Hedgic wouldn't happen on a different platform. But at the same time, like, they kind of were the ones that, like, paved the path for options in DeFi. But yeah, so Premia V1 was a decentralized, fully customizable peer-to-peer options market. You could underwrite. I think we had like 17 of the top like DeFi 1.0 assets at the time, and you could underwrite anything you wanted up to 365 days out. We realized pretty quickly that people don't know how to price options, and they asked us to build something that would help them price options. So like that was where V2 came in, the creation of an AMM. But yeah, I mean, it's really hard, and you probably know this. You've been with Frax for a while, Dave. Like when you meet a group of people that share the same vision, are passionate, are honest builders, like and even not in crypto, but like just in general, like in your work life, you try to keep those people around. So I was lucky enough to meet DK and Froggy and Lumio and the original cast of characters early on, and I always say that like whenever there's internal like disputes about something that we're doing or path, like my own outlook is like I will always concede for the best of like the protocol, or always concede for the best for the group, if like I'm the contentious one or something, because the group staying whole is like very important to me, and like to us continue building the product the way that we wanted to.
Yeah, Catboy's stronger together.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you out there. I've known the Frax guys since like before Frax, and going through the fire together, and seeing what they were capable of. And even when I like went off on my own path for a bit, it's funny, we just had the Gelato guys on too, and they're tremendous builders as well. And then like coming back into the Frax ecosystem, like there's really something to be said of like building trust over the course of years and going through like the not so fun times together, and like that builds up over time.
Totally.
That accrues over time, and like in an industry that like moves fast and everyone's trying to like chase the next thing, like there's something to be said about like sticking with a group of people, even with like the Flywheel boys, even with you, Kid, even with Sam, our producer, even with like everyone at Flywheel. We've been like through the thick and thin of the bear market for the past year and a half, coming out with a podcast every week. And like just hearing great builders like yourselves out there. And there's something to be said about just like doing the dirty work and grinding like day in and day out. It's not sexy, but like when you look back, it like builds up over time. And now you guys are at like Premia V3, and like you're on the precipice of like a lot of great things. And, so just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, people are always like, you guys are so loud about, options and Premia and stuff, but like options protocols don't pump. Like, why do you talk about options protocols? I'm like, because someone has to. Like, someone has
to carry the mantle. Yeah,
there have to be some people that are trying to like get people to understand options. So like, me and the Premia Mafia and the Vol Cabal from the other protocols, like we're happy to kind of carry that torch. Our communities may like pit themselves against each other, but like on the builder side, we get along with all of our quote unquote competitors. We've done spaces with them, thrown events with them. I think we all kind of look at it like we need to steal as much market share from Deribit and bring it to DeFi as we can.
Yeah.
And then once there's liquidity for us to actually fight over, then we should like compete and fight with each other, right? But like we're fighting over, like 100, 200 users right now. Like we should be, we need to start fighting once we have like 200,000, 2 million users, that are over here trading options.
Yeah. On that point, it makes so much sense. Like you get like coming up with standards for the entire industry, whether it's with DeFi options. I was gonna ask you guys, like, why can't they just be ERC20 tokens? Like, why does there have to be a separate standard, like a separate ERC for options?
It doesn't have to be a separate standard for Are you saying like why did we choose ERC 1155s in the beginning, and like why have we kind of stuck to that? Because I know
Or
some
no,
other ones use ERC 721s for their
yeah,
options.
you got DK was talking about before. 18 months out, you guys are trying to come out with like a standard for options.
Yeah, we're more so just trying to standardize everything, come up with a standard across options so that for composability purposes, right? Like,
Okay.
like you were, like Kay was saying, you can go on to Lyra and you can do one thing. You can go on to Open and do another thing. You can go on to Premia, but none of those products are composable. You can't buy on Premia and sell on Lyra or anything like that. But if there was standardization across us all, then you could. And, that is something that we think would be huge for people to be able to take options that they've bought one place and sell them another place because of pricing. That's something that exists in, the centralized spot market. Why can't it exist in the decentralized options market?
Options market. Yeah, no, totally. And that is one of the catalysts that could really get DeFi options on the map. Do you guys see any other catalysts or anything else you see that could get DeFi options like front and center and turn those 100, 200 users to like tens of thousands of users?
DeFi catalyst. I think there needs to be. I think we need to like together as DeFi period, like not just options, like fix the UX issue. Like when you look at like Robinhood, you look at like a lot of these platforms for traditional structured products and derivatives. They are like dumb simple. They spell out for a user what they're doing. I'm bullish on, coin. I think coin will be above this price, and this, like, we all kind of collectively need to do a lot more dumbing down, because I think as builders we kind of get lost in
we're too close sometimes.
Yeah,
we're too close
yeah,
to the
like
product.
Yeah, no, we definitely are.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So if we have like another GameStop kind of moment, but let's say it's with, there's cryptocurrency involved, I think that would be huge for options. If there was a venue people could come to and get that like Robinhood-like experience.
Yeah, I mean, there's tailwinds in a lot of regards. Like the UX is coming around, the infrastructure is starting to come around and mature for different ways to implement a better UX. The cross-chain infrastructure is getting a little bit better. There's like a lot of tailwinds. There's a lot of like cohesion, especially within like different ecosystems. Like I know the Arbitrum ecosystem, for example, is like we've been working so close since the step. We were like all in our own silos, and now like every day we're chatting with them. How can we build things together? What are ways to integrate with each other? And there's like, we all knew that like this would be a really good integration between these two projects, and we just never really prioritized it. And now that we're speaking and we're chatting, we're like, let's do it. Like, let's do it. We're all in here. We're building together. We're like, and so like, there's a lot of tailwinds in that regard. The UX across options in general just needs to get better. Mm-hmm. We all kind of know in the industry that we're not going to get the flow over from Deribit, especially on like the Protail side, unless we're matching on fees, because they're very, very rate and fee sensitive, right? And so like we're already, you'll see like we match Deribit on most of our fees. You saw like some of our competitors, they match Deribit now. And so like the fees are getting there. You're not going to be making it on trades, right? You're going to have to make it on other products that you build on top of your exchange layer, right? We get that now. So like there's a lot that's coming together of different things that we realized during the bear market that's all starting to converge now. It's great timing. I think the space will be vastly different in probably like end of Q1. And we'll see what happens like going into next year, right? Yeah. Who knows what happens with an election year with the market, but so far so good. Things are looking good.
Yeah, you mentioned the SIP incentives. I want to go into that. You guys got SIP incentives. What are your guys' plans about that? And what are your thoughts on the whole SIP governance process?
Ooh, you got the right people on to talk about that. DK's a diplomat. We call him DK the diplomat.
I'm the Frax diplomat, so like I get it.
So we have we got 900K Arbitrum for the SIP incentive.
Nice.
600K of that was applied to 6 of our vaults: our Wrap BTC call and put vault, our Wrapped ETH call and put vault, and our Arbitrum call and put vault. the next phase of our incentives is about to start. That will be launched through a trading competition. And then that will be 200K Arbitrum that will be given out for different incentives, different tasks and placements, P&L, maker taker stuff. And then the last 100K will be used for partners. So partners like Frax and other partners looking to launch markets on Premia will be using that Arbitrum to incentivize those pools and help bootstrap markets.
Yeah, when I alluded to it a little bit earlier that we changed the priority a little bit is you have the step, you get Arbitrum DAO is willing to essentially, in our eyes, and the way we're utilizing is customer acquisition costs, right? How do we pay someone to kind of play around with our protocol? And we have this kind of a cold start problem, whereas we need a natural seller. So right now it's the vaults. I could see that, changing 3 months from now, but right now it's the vaults. We need a natural buyer. We need exit liquidity if you want to sell prior to expiration. And we talked about that, how we're incentivizing that. And then we have that like hive activity, right? They're going back and forth, and then the engine kind of kick starts, and then, hopefully things are looking good post once we get the engine going. So that's how we decided to focus our STIP allocation, is solving that cold start problem. And if you want to get into the Arbitrum DAO governance world,
let's hear it. Let's get into it.
So I'm involved a lot. I've had 2 proposals in the last month pass on snapshots. I helped another one get over the line for STIP extension, which we're a neutral player for. They just needed an extra hand to kind of help get that up on the snapshot. But yeah, I play an active role within Arbitrum governance. I'm not as big as some of the other delegates per se, but I thoroughly enjoy it. And it's like, I love working with all the other, Arbitrum delegates and builders. And I do enjoy it more than my previous time in other DAOs, because it is very much a bottom-up approach. It is very much this is not the guidelines. This is not the standard. This is what you had to adhere to get grant funding. It's like, put up a proposal, right? It's like, get some buy-in, right? Do some lobbying.
It's politics in its truest form.
It is. It's Wild West, and I love it. And it's all about garnering support, having conversations with people, having because for the most part, for the last, forever, it's all been Premia, right? Like all my calls are Premia based, and now I have an hour, 2 hours a day where it's DAO stuff, right? Which is it's fun for me. It's a different flavor. And we're building a lot of cool stuff. We're getting we're trying to take it slow because you've already probably seen some of the drama that happens and things that are moved fast, that someone just throws up a proposal and doesn't get any support from it, hasn't received
we've seen
feedback.
Yeah.
And then
DK's the wrench.
There's hate mail everywhere. I know. I'm just trying to be pragmatic about things, right? And and we've been building in DeFi for a long time. There's a lot of DeFi in Arbitrum. And I've, for example, smart contracts is one of the work groups that I'm leading. Auditing, security services and auditing, and getting that subsidized for Arbitrum builders of any size, right? So that you can build on Arbitrum, and you're going to be provided these suite of services that you get for being a builder on Arbitrum. You already see another different ecosystems with BD teams take care of that, right? We're doing it from a DAO perspective.
Wait, can we go into that? So you have these working groups, and you help teams get funding for audits and stuff. How does that work?
Okay, so taking a step back, we've started a few working groups out of some of the proposals that came through. So I don't know, probably about 6 weeks ago, there were about 4 proposals on the forums for straight budget approvals for auditors, right? We know that this is an issue. We've known that the venture market has been it's been a desert for the last 6 months. There's a lot of projects that are building. They don't have any funding really. It's all bootstrapped or paying out of pocket, and they need a solid audit to go to market. And what we've seen is, some people, some groups may be cutting corners and going with the Craigslist, providers that they could find.
Backpage.com provider.
No, I mean, I say that in jest, but it wasn't the best quality. That there are some things that were would have been found by any big auditing shop, but I get it. The audits are not cheap. And so how can we get some funding for Arbitrum builders. And so what happened was we had like 4 different auditors that were doing like one-off budget requests, like $2 million for 2024, right? And we knew that there would be diminishing returns if, after the second auditor has got this budget approval, you're like, okay, well, if you want to get subsidized, use one of these 2 auditors. Well, it's like, well, what if I already have an existing auditor relationship? What if I already have a group of auditors I really like working with? Maybe I've had a retainer for the last year. They know my smart contracts in and out. I'm not going to just pick up and leave them if I want to get subsidized for this, because like I said, auditing is a big cost, and a lot of the projects in the space like are starting to feel it on the funding side, right? They're either cut. You're seeing a lot of cuts especially the last month, and so how can we help projects of a different size? So instead of having like 2 auditors coming at a $2 million budget ask, let's whitelist a bunch of auditors and then ask for like 10 million and then allocate that out. So that's the kind of approach that we're taking. It's a request for proposal framework. It's, you see it in a lot of like government procurement processes of like, either you have a bunch of whitelisted providers, and then each one of the projects can choose from these whitelisted providers, and there's a certain rate, similar for like insurance, right? There's like a negotiated rate that they'll pay for on your behalf. The DAO will. And what I was kind of seeing was that like there were some people that were making decisions in there that were like delegates, but they weren't on the builder side. So it's like they don't see the negotiations that go in with audit requests. They don't see like the different tiers of audit providers.
They've never experienced working with any of the audit providers.
Yeah, so I was on an airplane actually. I was on my way to Mexico, and I'm like, well, let's front run this and get everyone to agree. So yeah, I got that proposal up. On a Saturday, we like negotiated kind of like a ceasefire amongst some of those proposals that were coming up, and it's been moving. It's been moving fast. So that was the first snapshot that got like 99.8% support. Nice. And then the second one we just put up of what the next steps are, and then hopefully we'll have the procurement process set up by end of year. It's a lot of work. It's fun, but you work with a lot of projects. You work with a lot of delegates. You get some of the connections that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm always impressed with how dynamic the Arbitrum governance is, and how like you said, ground up and grassroots is. Like people like, I think the big thing is like people truly care. Like DK definitely comes out in your voice and how you speak about it, and being involved in these politics, and like people want what is best for Arbitrum. It's been like the DeFi chain, it's been that chain for a while, and like stuff like auditing, which is like just all part of the process. So with the audits, you basically, instead of like all these different proposals of like 2 million here, 2 million there for separate audit groups, you basically negotiate with them as a collective for 10 million collectively to provide audits to the Arbitrum ecosystem.
I just threw out that number. We haven't decided on the number yet. I'm working with all the auditors, right? So there's like 15 different auditors that we've been working with, making sure that this process makes sense to them to get them whitelisted. I was hoping to converge with another group on that. We'll see if that happens by year end. But yeah, I haven't even started thinking about the funding side of things.
Yeah. What are some of the lessons you've had from politicking? What are some stuff that you've learned in DAO politics?
A lot happens behind the scenes.
The family business, you mean?
Yes. A lot happens behind the scenes, and sometimes you might just see a proposal come up, but there was probably 30 hours worth of work that went into it beforehand of just like getting everyone's feedback and having everyone kind of get the buy-in, tailoring it to make sure that everyone, at least reached a state of no contestation, maybe not consensus, but at least no one contests it, right? Everyone can live with it. And then you see like a proposal that was like, oh, it seems easy enough. Let's put up another one similar to that, but didn't do all that background. So it's like you don't see all the work that goes on behind the scenes. I say is the biggest takeaway. There's so much work that goes on behind the scenes to get something ready and everyone happy with it.
I know how that feels. Yeah, because we're largely funded by grants at Flywheel, and we've been scaling up our grants for the past year and a half. So, first it was like 18K for 3 months, then 60K for 6 months. Then we got up to like 260K for the year. And now I'm in the process of, authoring some new grants. And, you take a lot of lessons from like your past experience and seeing like where costs are and everything.
Yep.
And just, dealing with different stakeholders in the ecosystem and whatnot. So it's been an experience, and we're on the precipice of a new grant at Flywheel. So definitely, yep, big things ahead. Announce soon, TM. But yeah, so we're excited there. So it seems like DK's chilling for a sec. Because outside of Premia, what is 2024 is close upon us. Do you have any predictions for 2024? Like, what do you expect in the world of DeFi in 2024?
A wise man once said, "If you thought super cycle was over, you should have gone into a coma." That's kind of how I feel going into the new year. I feel like I try to think about like what other Black Swan events could happen.
Me too.
And the list is dry. My bag's dry of Black Swans. I'm not too sure what other exchange, what third-party service controls enough capital in the ecosystem to where something happening to them would be a huge shock to the total macro crypto ecosystem, or volatility in Bitcoin or ETH. I just don't see that happening. There's so many positive catalysts, as well as sorry about that. Yeah, so many positive kind of catalysts on the horizon. And the other thing is price action already, and no one's, it's just us still stealing money from each other. There's not huge inflows that you're seeing. It's just the same people with maybe a couple of their friends who came back around. So that's pretty promising. I'm pretty bullish going into next year through the end of 2024. We'll see where we're at when we get towards the end of the year.
Yeah. DK, what about you?
Yeah, I can definitely. So I have a bowling league that I go to on Monday nights with a bunch of my normie friends, and so I use that as a gauge of where's the market, right? Because these are all the guys that were bought the top of last cycle, right? And they're texting me, they're I bought this, I bought that. What should I do with this? So I use it as a good barometer of where we are, right? And we are back, but they still have no idea. Still no, they haven't realized any of the price action yet. They haven't been following the price of everything like we have. They don't necessarily know that pretty much all the stormy clouds that we had saw on the horizon are pretty much behind us, right? And it's looking pretty blue skies. So they're not back yet. Which
we have some time, guys.
Yeah, we're back. They're not back.
Yeah, we're back. Yeah, exactly.
Good point.
We're all happy. That. We're things are looking good. There's, I said, the skies are blue, but they have no idea still. So we'll see when the influx of users come in. Who knows? Who knows when that's going to happen?
It comes when Tesla announces that Doge is the cryptocurrency form of payment they're allowing on Cybertrucks.
Yeah, actually, let me add a secondary question on top of this market topic, is that usually when we see these meme coins kind of pump so hard is usually at the last leg of the cycle, but then now we're kind of front running that last leg so that we can get to the next cycle.
A lot of times, though, it's an intra-leg.
We're so early.
No, a lot of times it's an intra-leg. You have to remember that the meme coin profits then flow back to BTC, which then flow to ETH. ETH is always the last to pump. It goes alts, BTC, ETH, and then Doge, on the heartbeat. But everything else, is...
Vol was so low for so long that I think people were just getting bored, and that's why we saw a lot of the meme stuff happen so early in the cycle. I'd be surprised if now that things are a little bit back, if we see a lot of meme coin action. I mean, a lot of the meme coins from last cycle are they've had some litigation against them. So I don't know if Vol comes back and there's stuff for people to trade, then maybe there's going to be less of it on the front half of the cycle. I don't know.
Right. I mean, I'm just talking about right now with meme, with bonk, with already
Ticker Bitcoin.
ticker Bitcoin. Exact. So I'm just like
SPX 6900. All those schizos are in my replies.
dude.
Everything
It's kind of like
you post,
rocking my brain a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
I definitely kind of align with DK. I think a lot of those were because people were just bored and it's something fun to trade. But I also
People just
think
want to
that,
feel something. Yeah.
Yeah, no, really, it is that. But I also think that given previous cycles, usually there's an alt rally, then BTC rips, it punishes everyone who decided to still hold alts. Then ETH catches up and punishes everyone who's still holding alts, and then BTC and ETH rip more and punishes them more for not swapping to BTC or ETH. And then alts run and we all die.
And then it's over. It's like an orchestra. It's like a whole symphony. It has its ups and downs. It's beautiful. And as you know, we're on the precipice of a new song coming up. So it'll be fun to ride this with you guys.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What are you excited about, Dave? What are some things that you've been around now for a little bit?
Yeah.
What are how are you feeling about the market? Are you as hopeful as us?
Yes, I am incredibly hopeful. I've been thinking a lot about stablecoin, about BAM. I've been thinking about a lot about BAM. It's funny, like I feel like my function for like the past 7 years is always like take Sam Kaz's big brain stuff and put it in language for like just like normal people or like people that are like pretty smart to understand, because he speaks at such a high level. And if you don't understand his like prose, it just goes over your head. And like I've like known him for so long that I'm able to just like break it down. And that's exactly what happened with BAM. And it was like, it's funny how that whole BAM GIF came about. Was like I was hanging out with him. He was like, "Hey, if you could like make a GIF of BAM, like I think that could do like that would just make life easier." So it took like some time to like understand how BAM worked. I was like, "Okay, I can sum this up in one sentence." Then I was like, "We got our guy Peepo to make a GIF of it." And literally that one GIF just like took off, and then like another have like the classic screenshot of Sam, and then boom, everyone's talking about it. So I'm excited about but another thing I've been thinking about is like with stable coins, like people talk about CBDCs and like, oh, like the US dollar CBDC. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think the Federal Reserve is going to issue CBDC. Happening. No. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the Federal Reserve is capable of doing it, nor it's in their interest to do it. I think you're going to have a bunch of like payment stablecoins. And if you think about it, payment stablecoins are just like right now, like
PayPal's.
Like PayPal's, and not just PayPal's, but like I think you could have like thousands of payment stablecoins.
I'm just throwing it out there, like for any listeners, so like they have a kind of an idea or a reference.
Yeah, because it's like an unlimited buyer of U.S. debt are these stablecoins. It's like a new black hole to like fund U.S. debt. So you have like China and like they're like the largest holder of treasuries and whatnot in like other countries, but like as they look for alternatives, like the U.S. government is gonna like want to find new holders of debt. And now there's this internet frontier of sovereign actors in the on-chain world that can like be those holders. So like it seems like it would make sense for the US to like prioritize and like be friendly to stablecoins, and it's just absolutely insane to me that they're not.
Here's a devil's advocate for you. Do you believe that we will be that 10, we'll say 20 years from now that we'll still be using paper currency?
Paper currency in general.
We've rid of like paper like everywhere pretty much, but we still use we'll call it paper currency.
So like India, right? Like, isn't that India doesn't? It's all digital now.
I think it depends on the society. Like I was in Japan, and like they're still big on using paper currency and coins. It's different. I see in the US, I could see paper sticking around and like fiat sticking around. And others in newer societies that kind of jumpstart, like China and India, like they went from like not having any technology to like doing everything on cell phones. And I could see like complete elimination, but I can see paper sticking around for 20 years. I don't know. What about you?
Then I guess that supports your theory, because mine is that it won't be around. That I see everything has already started going digital. They've already started conditioning people to digital currency via Zelle, Venmo, all these like third-party payment providers, direct deposit directly from your phone, scan your check. Like everything is going digital already, and they're creeping it in slowly. So if you think about it in that in that regard, what will the Federal Reserve issue the U.S. as a national currency for people to use if we move away from paper? It would only make sense that they then make a digital American dollar, which would then be a CBDC. And the benefit to them is that they're worried about all of the money laundering and money that's not accounted for and taxes paid for. Now they have tracked everything, all inflows and outflows from every person that they've issued money to. And for them, they can have their own private chain and they can do everything in the dark the way that they want to, and no one's going to be able to see anything. Like I just see them creating their own chain that operates in a way where they can do things privately on their private side, and then the public side, public facing, is what they'll use to track the rest of the American citizens.
I just don't see that as being a way to like exercise efficient or good monetary policy. I think the U.S. Federal Reserve Federal Reserve system with the branches and the commercial banks has worked out really well over the past like 100 years in terms of growing the economy. Now we can talk about how like the dollar has decreased in value, yes, but in terms of like U.S. economic might from like 1913 to now, to like for most of the 20th century, like it became the number one economy in the world.
Sure, because we have the strongest military in the world.
Military, yeah. Yeah.
That's why.
Funded.
It doesn't matter how down the dollar is if we'll nuke the shit out of you if you stop doing business with us.
That's a little dramatic.
But what I'm talking about is like with like how money is created with commercial paper. It's like banks, they're 10%. Fractional reserve. Someone comes in for a loan, they basically create money out of thin air and whatnot. And like
haven't we seen that in DeFi though? Like we know that it's totally possible to do on chain to create money out of thin air, and I don't see them like operating any differently. I still see them printing money out of thin air. I still see them on their private chain losing billions of dollars every year and misplacing it.
Yeah,
the U.S. Treasury did just request additional ways to hold foreign stablecoin issuers accountable.
they did. I did see that with like Tether.
It's pretty much like for Tether, but I agree with you. I agree with you that I can see a world where there's a lot of payment issuers. You get stacks on stacks of stablecoins. And that's just where the U.S. dollar is actually.
I still think there will be third-party
it's all kind of
stablecoins
shoved under the rug with the U.S. dollars. U.S. Stablecoins.
Yeah, like I still think there will be Amazon USD and PayPal USD, and you'll still have all these third-party stablecoin providers. But I think it will all get settled with some type of CBDC at the end of the day.
If you never have to take your money out of the system, it's just like another layer of this.
Yep. It's like, what do you take money for out right now? Like, no one takes cash out. Exactly,
some of us
but
now you stack another layer on top of it and you get another layer of abstraction.
Yep.
So no, I'm agreeing with Dave.
I know what you're saying. I'm saying I agree with you. I know what you're saying, that you get another layer of abstraction. I just mean like if you I'll just stop. I could go on a tangent forever about how I think my whole path into like Bitcoin and crypto is because at that time of my life, I was very tinfoil hatted about, the government wanting to, track, record everything you were doing. And I saw what was happening in other countries. You gave India as an example. They're actually a great example of where governments come in and they just reset the money, and it's like, seeing like a lot of people don't think about it. They're like, that would never happen. Well, it does happen. It happens in other countries all the time. So I shouldn't say all the time. It's happened in other countries in the past and recently in history. So it's not far-fetched to say that it could happen at some point in time in the future, and even a developed country like America. So that like thought that this could happen is what drove my interest into Bitcoin. So I still have, some of that tinfoil in me to where I believe that their ultimate goal is to track and control like everything that we're spending and doing, and, obviously get their money for that. And their biggest issue right now is that they're not getting all of their money from us. So how do you do that? You put in a system that they can, there's no way not to track it.
Yeah, I guess like where I could agree with you is if a CBDC isn't created, but if they like make like a certain payment stablecoin as like this is like the stablecoin in which like everything like settles in and everything goes back to that, and that stablecoin has like a direct line, or like a few different payment stablecoins have a direct line to like the Federal Reserve, and they have their like tracking system that way. I can see that as more conceivable. I just don't think like the Federal Reserve is, I could be wrong, is capable of creating like a CBDC, nor is it in their interest. I think they're more concerned about like the monetary policy of fiat right now. Like they're looking into it, but I don't see it. But I see for smaller countries and city states like Singapore, like Hong Kong, like CBDCs, 100%. Estonia,
to be clear,
100%.
I definitely don't think like the talks that like some states in the US are having and fears over CBDCs coming. I don't think this is something that's going to happen like a year from now or 5 years from now even. But I do think that within the next maybe decade that this is something that governments of developed countries start like heavily considering and implementing.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about this for a minute. Kit, what are your thoughts here?
I think in terms of the US side, I don't think the CBDC will come out. It would rather be a lot of more privatized stablecoins like JP Morgan coin, but effectively it's still state owned, but it doesn't come with that reputation risk if something were to happen, right? Because the US government's not going to want to put its name on something that it can't fully control, but it could exert pseudo or proxy control over, say, JP Morgan, any of the big 8 banks in the US. I think they'll probably do that instead of issuing one on their own.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else I've been excited. We just went on like a long tangent with that. I'm trying to think what else I'm excited about in crypto. There's so much shit going on. I'm really excited about Sub-DAOs, to be honest. We had Rune on to talk about Sub-DAOs, with what they're doing with Maker and like DAO. We saw like the Kumbaya DAO phase in like 2020, 2021. It was funny. I went to what was it? Was it MCon? I went to MCon in 2021, and like it was all like bull market vibes. And then 2022, it got real. And then this year, it was just like,
it got real.
Yeah, we need to have. Yeah, it was like, oh fuck, it's like these are actual organizations. We need to have standards. Like, how do you not just like onboard people, but like offboard people, and like how do you have quality control and all that? And then in 2023 there wasn't even an MCon to go to, so like that was like the DAO phase. But like I think if you can like run, or if there's like a way to like if like you align incentives with protocols, how do you like align incentives with people? And if you can like do that right, I think like
it has to be a passion project for them, right? I think a lot of the problems with DAOs is that people are excited because it's something new at first, and they're like, oh, I want to take part in this. But because they're not building it, it's like it's not full time for them, or it's not their true passion.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, okay, you know what? Like I don't feel like doing this anymore. It's just extra work. So you're right. You have to align incentives, or you have to find a group of people that are actually passionate about pushing forward whatever the goal of that sub-DAO is. Maybe it's event planning and organizing. Like, great. Like if maybe that was your job in the real world. So you're really going to excel at that here. And like, you can take part of that and lead like a subgroup that does that for an L2 or something. But I think a lot of it is like finding people that align with, your I don't want to say vision, but your passion to run those types of groups.
I've been thinking about this actually a decent amount, and I'm like, what kind of limits like leadership roles within like sub-DAOs or running working groups? Like, what is the reason that there's not a lot of take up especially when there's like so much money like in play here, and I feel like a lot of it being short-term nature commitments disincentivize people that like are super talented and that have the skill set to leave whatever they're currently doing to then invest the time in something that it's a big commitment to like leave a role that you're doing if
to leave a cozy, secure,
exactly,
desk
so, like,
job.
Unless you commit to these individuals, And if you're like already, you get so much pushback on rates, like how much this person is getting, right? What is an agreeable rate to pay this person? You get so much pushback on that already. Why would someone, who has that safety, and they're already enjoying what they're doing, why would they leave that, right? So you're not going to get the best talent in the current models that we see. It's like how do we do that so we can, still adhere to maybe a shorter time window, maybe like a 6 month or something. But if it's renegotiated or if it's continued from that point, they have way more upside, right? Of being able to take advantage of that, right? So you have to introduce vesting. You're going to have to introduce like ways to get people out of those roles that they're currently in. But right now it's just not there.
A few months ago, we actually saw, it was on the Curve forum, requests for funding for all their different working groups and subgroups. It was like I'm not sure how much it was. It was like definitely in the millions. And there was this whole discussion, and it ended up not passing for a variety of reasons. You can make the argument on the proposer side saying like, hey, like if we want to, get the top talent and they're not going to leave their jobs at Meta or in Silicon Valley to go like be in a much more unstable position working for a DAO. And especially if you're not going to pay them as much, we're not just competing with other people in crypto, we're competing with like other people in all of tech. But on the other side of like the people that like had, things like, what could have been improved, it was like, you guys didn't do the proper politicking. Like, where's the accountability? How are these funds being allocated? What's the timeline? Like, could you have like split this up into smaller proposals? So I think it's kind of, at the end of the day, it just comes down to communication between, with politicking, like those proposing and key stakeholders and the community at large. And just getting everybody aligned, and like it doesn't have to be like, oh, like perfect, but it just has to like people can just like live with it, and then it gets passed, and then you can see where you can improve. You can keep people accountable, and as long as you can see progress made and see like how actual gains and results from there, that should really like all that matters at the end of the day.
And just people without precedent, people are like sometimes struggle to as a DAO voter to like vote on anything, but you're not going to get precedent unless you
it's like a chicken egg problem. That's why I say like with proposal, like people like proposing DAOs, like start small, start with like a trial. Like that's what we did at Flywheel, like just 18K for 3 months, like something low pressure, show like hey, we're committed. And that's how you build trust with the community, because it's like, even if you're like a big name and you like come into a DAO, and just because you have a name does not necessarily mean you're going to get the funds, like, and stuff. Like people like big names are thrown like here and there, like all the time.
I don't want to throw them under the bus, but I saw a recent Aave, or maybe it wasn't recent, but I saw an Aave grant or Aave DAO forum thing that one of their contributors was being bluntly honest with, we'll say, practicing radical candor with the service provider that was requesting for more funds. And I think maybe more of that needs to happen. A lot of people are afraid to speak out. They think like there's two problems. One being that not enough people are willing to speak out because they're afraid of how that may impact their relationship with other service providers in that kind of sector, or other maybe members of the DAO, other protocols that have worked with them or have ties with them. And the other one being on like the voting or delegate side, that the ones that aren't builders don't know the relationship or how actually working with some of these groups are. So for them, they just see a big name. They think of the reputation that comes along with it. So they think, hey, this will be good for them to partner with them. It will only bring about more attention and, then more users. And, they just think of it in regards of like attention gravity, and that, oh, more attention gravity, more good. And they don't actually understand that, just because they're a big name doesn't mean that they're allocating the resources or the time to the protocol that some of the other ones may be, and that those ones will maybe be the big name in another year or 2 years, and so yeah, you can definitely lump it all into like communication.
Yeah, and I think there's like something to be said about like there's a lot of service providers and like, you know, some services like audits, like those are obviously going to work with like a bunch of different protocols, and like it's fine that like audits are like a service in themselves, but there are like other services, maybe like marketing or BD or like other things which are like could be things that could be internal to the protocol or to the DAO, but that are like that someone that's external is providing or is like proposing. It's kind of like with those kind of things, you need some sort of loyalty built up. You need some sort of like missionary nature to it. Otherwise, they're just not going to have the same passion because it's mercenary in nature. It's just like it's a transaction. Like, oh, they're getting. You see this a lot with like PR. That's like a good example. Like, oh, you pay for PR. They try to like do maybe traditional PR or like try to like drum up like whatever new product release or token this or that, and you don't really get the results. I know. In the past, I remember like in past things I worked at, I would do a better job getting PR for where I was working than the hired PR firm because like I knew like how to construct the narrative and how to present it to the journalists, and you know I was like part of the project. So it's just like it makes a difference when you actually care at the end of the day.
Yeah, one thing I've talked about before, being that like we're, you know, a pseudo anonymous team. The detriment to that is, you know, that like you don't have the face that people can initially like just trust because there's like the face name to it. So, you know, like I've said to people that being Anon is both like the benefit to it is that although it takes a while to like build up a reputation of trust or, you know, a long line of like cumulative proof of work that like you can show behind you. It can be taken away like in a split second. So like if you fuck up, then like that reputation is tarnished. And sure, you can spin up a new identity, but it takes a really long time in the industry to build up trust and to build up a reputation again. So it's like it's really difficult because you can't just like, you know, go on and smile and make people feel like empathetic towards you because of your emotion and they can connect with you like when you're your real self, you know, and using your face, and people can say like, no, I saw Dave talk, you know, like he's really sorry and like, let's give him another chance. Like when you're Anon, they're like, no, fuck that guy.
Yeah, you know, he's hiding.
Yeah. He won't even show us who he is anyway. Fuck him. Like, you know, so it's really, it's like you have to really like build a strong like line of proof of work to have that reputation.
Yeah,
and
speaking of Anons that completely tarnished their reputation, Cozy, remember Gabagool?
Of course.
Oh my God, man.
That was heartbreaking, man.
That was heartbreaking. Yeah.
It sucked because I had just met him like in person, you know, maybe like a month beforehand.
I think we were there. I mean, we met him together.
Yeah, I think so. Like,
it was at dinner. Yeah.
Yep. We went to some dinner and like I met him, and then I saw him again like that weekend somewhere, and he seemed like a really nice, like genuinely good guy. And when all of that happened, I couldn't believe it. And I just reached out to him and I was like, please tell me this isn't true. And he just told me that it was. He just said like, I'm really sorry. I'm going to put out an official statement, but it's like, it's hard to just explain. Yeah. Sorry to let you down. And I was like, oh, fuck. Wow. Like I give it to him for just like admitting it to everyone and not trying to hide. But like, you know, it sucks once you, and that's a prime example. You know, he had a really good thing going for him. He was like leading things over at Velodrome, kind of leading, I think, BD with them over there. And
the info token, he had a bunch of things going.
Info token, and you know, he had like a good group of like analysts and kind of trustworthy builders that were supporting him. And you know, yeah, like that, you fuck up and your reputation is gone.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to I don't know, some advice for the pseudo Anon builders, you know, always put your best foot forward, keep yourself out of drama, don't shill things that aren't your own project, and you should be all right.
Yeah, take extra precaution. DK, do you have any advice to Anon builders and founders out there?
Look, I mean, when we started, right? So the 2020 era when we met, we launched with Premia in 2021. We were very protective of our privacy. So I think that part of being privacy forward is still like ingrained in a lot of what we do. But we've made a lot of compromises in that time. So we're like barely Anon now, which has its benefits. and like obviously we're always at events, and when we have events, people like meet us in person. But I like living in the metaverse, so that's why you're seeing me here. But yeah, I would say I would agree. Like if you're Anon, people are going to criticize every move that you make with extra scrutiny, and like any shady bit of anything shady that you do is immediately discussed amongst all the different communities that are around. Like, oh, did you see that like weird thing that group was doing, or like, oh, they disappeared for a while or whatever. Like we all talk, and you're going to be scrutinized more, and it could be even for like the better of like, you know, making sure that you're always on the right path. But yeah, you can't, you know, you can't cut any corners. But you do get the added benefits of, you know, some of the like wrench attack type of privacy that you get with being pseudo anon. But at this point, like, I mean, you can find us online like super easy.
Yeah, I mean, like Dave's met me. I always tell people like I'm happy to meet them in person at like Premia specific or like, you know, industry events. It's more so because I'm very conscious of just the world we live in, right? And like those of us that are taking advantage of the volatility in crypto are generally much better off than the people who live in the areas around us. And I think that it's just, you know, not very smart to put an additional target on your back. When you're selling pictures of monkeys for hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, you don't know what the person in the next cul-de-sac is doing to pay rent, to fix their car or anything. And, you know, I've got kids. I don't want their life being in danger because, you know, I've sold some pictures online, you know, and I think that's like the main reason that I choose to still be like pseudo anon, even though I'm happy to like meet people that are working in the industry. But it's just to like, you know, protect myself from the people who are not within the industry, who may look at it as an easy opportunity to come up. There was one thing I was going to say that I'm trying to think of what it was on something for builders. I don't know. Maybe it'll come to me in a minute.
Yeah.
Privacy. I mean, there's a lot of us now. I mean, like, I feel like in 2020, well, like because there was a good period of, I don't know, 2 years, especially coming out of DeFi summer, where like if it was an anonymous founder project, it was probably a rug, right? And like, and we still put the money in them, and they still rugged us. and like, we've all been there, right? Like we've all done it. And so then anyone that was anonymous for like, you know, for the next year it was a rug, right? It's definitely a rug. They're not going to get any traction. But the guys that have stuck with it, like, I mean, at this point, are there any anonymous real projects anymore? I don't know. A lot of the builders in this space that are anonymous have been here for like 2-3 years.
Yeah, like I'd say
but that's what I'm saying. Like they've all been here for 2 or 3 years, right? They have established, and I would say that a lot of the online personas are worth so much to these individuals that like there's not going to be a rug because they make more like they've built and put so much of their identity into these personas that they're worth significant amount of capital to these people, right? So like I'm trustworthy of a lot, especially if you have like a big Twitter following and you've been building in this space and like you're constantly involved in other projects. It's just like there's a lot of your identity associated with this that you won't, you know, you're not willing to get rid of it.
I mean, Satoshi set the standard for Anons. Like I think it's so important that, and he followed through, and he left, and no one can really get a read on who he or she or they is. And I think like because of Satoshi, that's why like Anons will always be accessible, and they should be. They should be. It's like
Satoshi is Bryce Wiener.
Yeah, Bryce.
It's Bryce Wiener. That's who Satoshi is.
Who's Bryce? I have no idea who he is.
He's like an old school like shitcoiner. He launched like a token for like a ton of countries back in the day. I always joke around and say he's Satoshi.
It's a funny name.
It's a great name.
Yeah.
Let me think.
Craig Wright's going to come after you for that, by the way.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah. My favorite conspiracy theory about Satoshi is he's a super intelligence from the future.
Yeah, that meme kind of came from, or that idea came from a meme that
the 2028 meme, right?
Everyone thought it was like Satoshi was using a quantum computer from the future to mine something, but to mine this hash, but it's just a magic number.
It's just a number. Yeah. But yeah, I think we're coming up towards the end of the interview. Almost, an hour, 45 minutes. But before we go, we always do a lightning round. So like get to know you guys like off the chain and what you guys like to do when it's not doing crypto things. So Kit, go ahead with the first question.
All right, so I'll kick this off with DK here. And what was your virgin crypto experience? When did you first touch the blockchain? And sex doesn't count.
So I didn't come into blockchain until Ethereum. So it was post Ethereum ICO. It was probably about 4 weeks prior to the DAO hack. I used to make actually YouTube videos. And I used to talk about because I worked in traditional finance before I left, it was 10 years. But this was back in 2015, 2016 era. So I used to make videos about settlement, right? Like using blockchain and Ethereum for settlement, right? It was a big thing. Operations at bulge bracket banks are massive. They're massive operations. They cost billions of dollars. And I'm like, a lot of this can go away, right? There's a lot of processes back then. So anyways, I used to make videos on using it for voting and using it for settlement and stuff like that. Those videos never got any views. But the ones about buy ETH on Gemini and it was $9, would be 100,000 views, right? Now, that's not what I wanted to talk about, but this is not very fast for lightning round. But anyways, it was post DAO hack, original Mew, my Ethereum wallet, right? It was like a standalone app. They originally wanted to put dApps into it. And it was, prior to the MetaMask extension. And that was the first time that when I was moving money between Mew and MetaMask extension, I say it was the first time that and then between, that was the first time I touched the blockchain.
Cool. And Cozy, what about you?
No, mine was Bitcoin, early on, 2013-ish, downloading regular, Electrum Bitcoin wallets using that way. But then we'll say my main, my real dive was when I started mining. And that was because prior to that, I was building, Hackintoshes and found out you could mine cryptocurrency with computers. So I was like, why don't I just, add some extra GPUs to these and then mine crypto with them. And I was a huge shitcoiner, was spec mining early on, and met a lot of crypto people who are still around, a lot of CT who's still around today from that 2015, 2016 era.
Oh, super cool. And then last question from me, and then I'll hand it over to Dave. But what is your favorite off-chain touch grass activity? Let's start with Cozy, hobbies and interests.
Let's see, traveling in general. I love to travel. I'm more of a beach guy than woods, but I do enjoy hiking and mountain climbing and stuff like that. But other than that, I play a lot of video games.
Nice.
Cool. DK?
I'm a simple man. Taking my dog for a walk, the getting away from my computer, unplugging, even if it's for 25 minutes. I do appreciate the minimal amount of time I spend off the internet.
Cool.
Yeah. My final question is, who would you recommend as a guest? Who do you want to see on Flywheel next?
Ooh. Who do I want to see on Flywheel next?
It's difficult because we just had a talk. We had a really good talk with Dolomite this week. I know you guys.
We had them. Yeah,
we did. Yeah, we just had them.
Have you talked with Silo yet? Because that would be if you've done Dolomite, Silo provides
we'd love those
a little
guys.
bit different.
Oh, the Silo guys,
Yeah, because they do isolated lending, so it's a bit different than Dolomite. Maybe them. Have you had Pendle on? Talk to those guys.
Oh, we talked to Pendle guys in Singapore.
Yeah. There you go. If you talk to Camelot.
We haven't.
We should bring Camelot
on.
There you go.
Yeah,
get
Boots
Sir
on
Iron
here.
Boots on here.
Yeah.
Sir Iron Boots.
Yeah, Wen Moon would probably be interesting now that he's.
Oh, we had it on One Moon.
We got him.
He was.
Yep.
Oh yeah. I actually remember seeing you guys.
I think he said Corey from Dolomite.
He did say Corey. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because we all talk a lot. Like I told you, we're so close with these guys now post Stip. So it's Iron Boots is a good one. The Silo guys, we love the Silo guys.
If you want just like a fun convo, definitely like the Risk or Smiley guys. They're super.
Dan
Oh, Smiley. Yeah.
They're
Dan from Risk is my vote. Final answer.
All right, he said Dan. The Smiley guys would be fun. They're all just like real high energy. You know.
Yep.
Like,
I know them.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
big volatility bulls. So
Let's choose the name. Oh, what about Marty? Would Marty come on?
yeah,
Oh,
Marty
he'd
would
love
come
to.
on. Yeah, I mean Marty would probably
Oh.
love to come on. He'd come and chat with you guys.
Yeah. Oh no, I'd love to have Marty on. Especially just like we'd just vibe over Brazil.
Oh, he'll talk to you sometimes on our we do a stream Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays in the morning at like 11 in the morning, Eastern, God's time. And
God's time.
and yeah, Marty will, if we let him, he would spend the whole hour talking about Brazil.
He sounds like me. He sounds like me.
He fucking loves it there.
Yeah. No, I go down there a good amount. Big fan. And like, you know, the more I go down there, just like the more purpose I have going down there, not just to enjoy myself, but there's like a lot of like cool stuff happening in crypto and especially DeFi.
You know, I remember what it was earlier. It's not even anything big. It was just going into like, you know, the not getting yourself into anything. Like, you know, I met the guys at Insert Finance. They do like some NFT financialization stuff. Like I'm doing something with them where they're like, you know, offering up a mint to come play Fortnite with me. Right. And when they were explaining it to me, they're like, yeah, you know, people who spin, they can earn ETH and they'll earn mint and and then you'll earn fees. And I was like, how about I don't earn anything? You just distribute all of that back to everyone minting. And all I want is an NFT from the thing and to like have fun. Cause like, even that, like, I just don't want anything coming back to me to where like, oh, well, he's taking fees for this or he's taking fees for that. It's probably not frowned upon at all, but I'm so allergic to like just doing anything that could like be frowned upon. It's even why like I shit post a lot less than I used to. I'm like ripping on people way less than I used to. Like 2023 Cozy is way different than 2021, 2022 Cozy.
He's grown up. He's more mature.
I'm just cozier. I just try.
He's cozier.
I'm trying not to like cause conflict, you know, with people. You know, I think we get a lot more done if we're all just, you know, trying to find ways to work together or work alongside each other. Like you don't have to like people to build something with them. You know, you don't have to like someone to be in the same room as them. So like, you know, there's no reason to, you know, belt out and tell the world how much you dislike or despise some other, you know, protocol or person.
No need for beef for all vegetarians here.
Maybe in the metaverse.
Maybe.
I am. Yeah, in the metaverse. In the metaverse, no beef. I'm a vegetarian.
Yeah. Well, Cozy, DK, we're coming up on almost 2 hours. Thanks so much for coming on. And where can people find you guys on Twitter and find Premia?
You can find me at vxCozy with a 0 instead of an O. DK is DK3 Anon on Twitter. And then you can find Premia at Premia Finance. We need to change that, DK. It should be Premia.
We need to change it to Premia. I mean, we can't tell people we're going to change it to. But
keep them on your toes.
It's on the to-do list. It's definitely on the to-do list.
Yeah.
We get Twitter Premium this month.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for coming on, and we hope to see you soon.
Yep. Thanks
Appreciate
again.
the time, guys.
Thanks, boys.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the post game. I'm your host, DeFi Dave, here with Capo K. We are wrapping up a marathon of an episode with the Premia guys. We went from talking about options, the ins and outs of how Premia works, how options work, you know, where you can find product market fit with options and how to get there, to talking about like DeFi and DAOs and crypto in general, just like what's on our minds, you know, the DAO politics of Arbitrum. We went all over the world here, all over the chain here. And Kit, what are your thoughts on this one? What do you think of Premia as a product compared to other options protocols that we had on here?
So I coming into this interview, I expected them to be like the other option protocols where they're building such super cool product and with, you know, for whom, You know, that was always
Yeah.
like my question. But then when they expressed how they view, you know, options as like a tool in the tool shed that kind of accompanies things that are popular right now, such as perps, are, I think that now, like, you know, yes, now this project is different. They're not only building the product, but they're thinking about distribution. On the last episode with Gelato, the founder said, right, you know, first time founders think about product, second time founders think about distribution, and spot on. And I feel like, you know, Premia has a proper approach to getting those users. So they're not building for the users today; they're building for the users tomorrow. And I think that's good.
Yeah, that was the most exciting part when they were talking about the shared portfolio margin, that the things that are possible there. And like that seems like, you know, like they call it the holy grail and the killer product, and like that seems to be like the PMF for options, like something like that. I really enjoyed this interview, especially towards the end, and we were just like, because I've known Cozy for a bit, we were just like chopping it up and just like talking about you know, what we thought about like CBDCs and what we, you know, thought about the space, and like you know, what it means to be Anon. You know, I think they're the first ones to come on as like cat boys with the Anonymity NFTs. Those were sick. You know what's funny? Usually when I do these interviews, I usually like, you know, I think it's like habit, like on a Zoom call, you just like look at yourself. So it's just like you're looking at yourself. But with this interview, I was just like, I had them, and I was just like looking at them and like seeing like what find. Oh, there's a squiggly in the background. There's a moon cat like pimped out. But you know, good guys for sure. I'm like excited. You know, good actors in the space. Like been around for a while and a minute. And, you know, I think it's interesting how like I remember when Cozy used to be like super adversarial on Twitter and just like always starting beef. So it's interesting to hear him now like be like, I'm chill. I'm like in a much cozier state.
Vegetarian arc.
Vegetarian. He's a vegetarian. He's a peace, kumbaya type.
He's an herbivore.
An herbivore. Yeah. You know, what are your thoughts on the whole? I know that like probably like DAO politics like it's not your forte. But like with the STIP proposal, because that was like a big deal in the Frax community too. Like, what are your thoughts on like the STIP proposal in general, and like how like Premia like traversed that? I mean, or actually, let me revert that. The STIP proposal in terms of customer acquisition.
Okay. Then let me take a step back and first caveat this is I didn't really follow it that tightly because again, the DAO stuff I kind of leave it up to you /Sam to kind of keep me updated on. But my thoughts around how to use it as a tool for customer acquisition, I feel is very generous of Arbitrum to do. And obviously Arbitrum needs to do it because it needs to crank up the transaction number. So it's not generous in the sense that they're just giving it away. But I feel that, you know, providing the support to seed liquidity initially is critical. Like that's obvious, but I think the more nuanced part was like allowing each DAO the flexibility to do what they want with it is good. You know, normally like if I were to liken this to gaming, if a publisher were to publish your game, they would then pretty much run the live operations, do customer and user acquisition for you, and they have a pretty strict mandate around that, and they control how the money is spent, kind of users to target, like they own all of that. And the game studios usually just take it and just like hope users come in and they operate around that. But whereas, you know, Arbitrum is literally giving these tokens away and letting each individual studio in the analogies that I was saying decide how to use it best, right? Because everyone knows their community best. And I think that the secondary effect is like these emergent emission mechanics came out, like Dolomite came out, right? With
Dolomite,
which I thought was so clever. So I think this unintended consequences of this emergent emission mechanic, I think, is a great experimental.
You know, I just realized we've been interviewing a lot of Arbitrum projects. Premia, Dolomite, Umami.
Yeah. Maybe we should file for an Arbitrum grant.
Maybe we should file for an Arbitrum grant. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like interesting that naturally, like we go where DeFi goes, and like there's a ton of DeFi on Arbitrum, true. Yeah, we're not doing because of their Arbitrum. Yeah, we go where doing it's on Arbitrum. You know, so you know it's interesting to see, and I think that it's what really gives like Arbitrum staying power. It's like not just all these DeFi protocols, but also like the ground out DAO politicking that takes place for like not just the SIP proposals, but for all this other stuff. They're talking about like, working groups for audits and for other things. And I'm curious for like what they may have in store this week that they told us like, after the show. I'll leave it at that. And Arbitrum DAO land. This was a lot of fun. Like, been wanting to talk to Cozy for a while, and it was definitely a cozy interview. I just got to give a shout out to VE Horny, who's the one. It's one of the funniest people on Twitter, and he's the one that like connected Frax with Premia like back in the day, and like and he's the one. We wouldn't have people without VE Horny. I don't know if you know that.
I did not know that.
Yep. So like, shout out Horny. You the man. But yeah, that wraps it up here. If you want to keep up with everything at Flywheel, make sure you go ahead, hit that bell button right now. Make sure you subscribe, leave us a comment, let us know what you think. Give us a like. Every little bit helps. Make sure you follow us on our social media at Flywheel DeFi on Twitter, Telegram, and TikTok. Subscribe to flywheeldefi.com for all the latest updates, insights about Frax DeFi, and everything in between. You can follow me on Twitter at DeFi Dave 22.
You can follow me at 0xcapital_K.
And we'll see you next week. Peace. Everything said on this episode is not financial or tax advice. This channel is strictly for educational purposes and is not an investment advice or solicitation to buy or sell any assets or to make any financial decisions. This video is not tax advice whatsoever. Please talk to your accountant and do your own research.